So in this video I'm going to go over Notre Dame. I thought in my previous video I did UConn, so I thought I should cover both independents. So Notre Dame has an 11.5 win total of their over/under. That's by far the highest in all of college football. Nobody else has more than 10.5. And if you go to the national championship odds, they're second in terms of odds at plus 650. So that should kind of give you an idea of just how high everyone is on Notre Dame this year. We look at their schedule, it's a rather easy schedule. There's really only three games that I think are really going to challenge them, but going over it, they open the year against Wisconsin, then they got Rice, Michigan State, at Purdue, at North Carolina, Stanford. Then we get one of their really tough games, which is at BYU. BYU these past couple years, they've been a 10-win team. Also, that's in BYU, very tough place to play. So that's one of the three games that I think they could struggle with. Then you have Navy, then it's Miami. This time it is at home. Obviously, last year Miami was one of their two losses. It was a very close game, but last year was in Miami. This year it's in Indiana, so that should really help. That is the second of their three big games. Then they get Boston College, and then it's SMU at home. And this one also should be a pretty good game. Rhett Lashlee has had SMU pretty good these past couple of years. This is a rematch from the college football playoff a couple years ago. It is also at home. They then finish the year at Syracuse. So this should kind of give you an idea why they do have an 11.5 win total. Um, really, apart from those three big games, they don't play many other tough teams. I mean, I think Boston College, Stanford, North Carolina, Purdue, Michigan State, and Wisconsin are all slated to finish towards the bottom of their conferences. Navy is projected to be one of the better group of six teams, but again, it's a group of six, so that's not saying that much. So, and then Rice, of course, as well. So it is a very easy schedule apart from those three games. And looking at 2025, uh, obviously they started 0-2, and that was a loss at Miami in Florida, and then they lost against Texas A&M at home. They lost those two games by a combined 4 points. It was two really close, really great games. They then won the next 10 straight games. And if you look at it, they beat Purdue by 26, they beat Arkansas by 43, beat Boise State by 21, beat NC State, they beat USC, they beat Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. All that to end the year. And looking at their closest games, they only had two games all year that they didn't win by 20 or more, which was USC, who they beat by 10, and then funny enough, at Boston College. Boston College finished 2-10 last year. Somehow they only won by 15 in that game. So that is something interesting to note. And this is a big stat where I would say Notre Dame has a lot of hope, which is so this is returning production from ESPN every year. They kind of uh, look at every team's returning production percentage, and the way they calculate it in their own words is the percent of your returning O line snaps make up 39% of your offensive percentage. Your returning receiver tight end yards is 35%, returning quarterback passing yards is 22%, and then percent of returning running back yards is 3%. And then on the defensive side of the ball, your percent of returning snaps is 66% of your defense. Percent of returning tackles is 19.2, and your return of tackles for loss is 14.9. And this does consider if you're coming from so it even says right here, this is pretty good example. It says if your quarterback leaves and you bring in a transfer who has productive elsewhere, it's going to dampen the blow of your quarterback leaving. So it does consider the transfers you are bringing in as well if they have production elsewhere. And I want you to look at who number one is, and it's Notre Dame, and they have a 72% production returning. Nobody else. So the average of all teams is about 55%. And if you look here, it's a defense that is really returning a lot. They're returning 77% of their defensive production. So it is of returning production, I should say. Sorry, because not they don't necessarily have to have their production be at Notre Dame last year, but 77% is a large. It's second, actually tied for first. The only team with more is Florida, who has 77% as well, but they're only returning 55% on offense at Florida. Meanwhile, Notre Dame's returning 67%. So it is a lot of production that is returning. And looking at 2025, even though they lost those first two games, it was a dominant year. On offense, they ranked 42nd they ranked second in points per game at 42 points a game. And on defense, they ranked 11th, giving up just 17.6 points per game. And the big things to note, it's they are getting CJ Carr back. Remember, last year was his first year starting, and he was good. He was good. He got better as the year went on. 66% completion percentage, 2,700 yards, 24 TDs, 6 interceptions. Um, and we can I'll get into the only concern with Notre Dame in a second, but looking at Marcus Freeman, obviously, so Marcus Freeman, he's coming into year 6, and if you look at his time, or I should say year 5, fully coaching at Notre Dame, and in those 5 full years of coaching, because in 2021 he only came for the bowl game, he was 9-4 in 2022, 10-3 in 2023, 14-2 in 2024, and 10-2 last year. He made a college football national title game, obviously in 2024, and so 43-12 overall at Notre Dame. He was 0-1 in 2021. He lost the Fiesta Bowl. Every year they have been inside the top 10 in terms of their AP high. If you look at their AP post, their lowest ranking to end the season was 18th in 2022. So they continue to get better. And so now let's go ahead and look at CJ Carr. He's obviously coming back. He's going to have to be the if they're going to win a national title, it's going to be because of CJ Carr. And if we look, the year started a little shaky, right? In his first 2 games, he played at Miami, 221 yards, 19 for 13, 2 TDs, 1 interception. He also ran for a touchdown. And against Texas A&M, he was 20 for 32, 293, 1 TD, 1 pick. So he wasn't bad in those games, but I just think since it was his first year starting, it was kind of like they were limiting what he was doing, right? And I think you can kind of, if you watch the games, you could kind of notice it. Like against Texas A&M, it wasn't that he played bad. It just felt like they still kind of had the training wheels on him a little bit, wanted to get the feel. And if you watched Notre Dame last year, as the year went on, you could tell this is where, sometimes you don't want to look at the box score. You just watch the games. You could tell CJ Carr got better and better and better. And especially as it came down, he had 2 interceptions in the first 2 games. The rest of the year, he had 4 interceptions, right? A lot of those games, he was having clean slates. Now, this is where the concern comes in. So last year, obviously, he was able to have the training wheels because if we look at it, they obviously had Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Uh, Both of those guys are gone. Jadarian Price, he went to the Seahawks. He had 600 yards and 11 TDs. And Jeremiah Love obviously got drafted to the Cardinals in the first round, 1,300 yards, 18 TDs. So they're losing about 2,000 yards and 29 rushing TDs. Now, obviously, I think every year Notre Dame has a good running back. I don't think, I'm not saying they should be worried, and it's not like they can't go find someone to have production, especially at the running back position. But they were a run first team last year. That was their identity, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Um, Now you're going to have to, it's going to be a lot more on CJ Carr. So if CJ Carr doesn't take the step that I think all of us think he will, it could get a little dicey, but I think everyone, including myself, thinks he's going to take a huge jump. I think right now, actually, if you go look at Heisman odds, he's the favorite to win the Heisman. He's plus 700. So there is a lot of expectations and a lot of pressure on CJ Carr to produce this year, and I think rightfully so. So with CJ Carr having the pressure and them losing their top 2 running backs, let's get into probably the most positive thing about Notre Dame, though. It's going to be their defense, right? This is a defense that last year gave up 17.6 points a game, and it's probably going to be better this year. The highlight of this defense is going to be Leonard Moore. He had 5 interceptions last year. He was a Jim Thorpe Award finalist. Obviously, Caleb Downs won the award, but he was right there as a finalist, and he's probably going to be a finalist at the very least this year. Probably even going to win it. I think he's the favorite to win the award this year. He's probably going to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft, and he's going to highlight that defense that's going to be extremely good. So, even though, yes, there's going to be a lot of pressure on CJ Carr to produce, he's going to have help, right? And they're going to figure out the run game. I don't know when the last time, if we go look at 2024, you look at their rushing, it was Jeremiah Love with 1,100 and Jadarian Price with 700, but Riley Leonard gave 900. But you go back to 23 when they didn't have Price and they did have Love, but he wasn't obviously the marquee. It was Estime. Estime had 1,341 yards and 18 TDs. We go back to 2022. It was Estime again. He had 900 yards, and they had Logan Diggs with 800 yards. So it always feels like there's really a running back who's capable in this Notre Dame offense, especially when you consider year in year out Notre Dame has one of the best O lines in the country. So they did lose probably their 2 best running backs, but they're going to replace them. The only question is, can CJ Carr kind of pick up the load and continue to get better, like I think most of us think he will be? But anyways, they're the favorites. they're the second favorites to win the national title. They have an over/under of 11.5. The expectations for Notre Dame, it's sky high. If you pretty much look at any sort of kind of odds. Like they're the favorite to reach the CFP quarterfinals, right? Minus 280. The next highest is Oregon at minus 190. So if you look at any odds, they're pretty much right there at the top. Their expectations this year are sky high, especially because they're going to have that whole like revenge arc for getting left out. So the question is just going to be, can they can they meet those expectations? And I think they will. I think they'll be in the college football playoff. My prediction is 11-1. I do think they lose one either to BYU or Miami, but other than that, I think this is going to be a very quick 6 or 5-0 start or 6-0 start. I think they blow out Wisconsin week 1 and continue that. So I can't wait to watch and we'll see. But anyways, that's all I got.